thought he was powerful because he had money, a title, and a corner office. He thought he could humiliate her, a nurse who worked until her hands bled. The moment he raised his voice, he made the biggest mistake of his life. Because her husband wasn't just any man. He was a Marine, and Marines don't fight for pride. They fight for respect. The hospital hallways smelled like antiseptic and exhaustion. Every footstep echoed with a story of pain. And every nurse carried a quiet kind of heroism, the kind the world rarely applauds. Among them was Alyssa Monroe, a nurse whose calm voice had guided more patients through panic than any doctor's medication ever could. She worked double shifts, nights, weekends, holidays, not for glory, but for her patients and for her husband, Captain Daniel Monroe, who had served 12 years in the Marines before coming home to her. Daniel often told her, "You heal people. I just protect them," but in truth, Alyssa had always been the warrior in their family, until the day she met Richard Keene, the hospital's CEO, a man whose suit cost more than her monthly salary, and whose smile could cut glass. Richard had built his empire not through care, but control. He loved being the man everyone feared, the boss who could fire someone with a look. He liked to say, "Hospitals aren't about healing. They're about profit." So when Alyssa submitted a report about faulty equipment and reused medical supplies, he took it personally because what she really exposed was him. He called her to his office one Thursday morning. The blinds were drawn, the air too still. "Sit down," he ordered, not looking up from his laptop. "I'd rather stand," she replied softly. He smirked. "You're brave for a nurse. But let's not pretend you understand how this place works." "I understand enough to know patients are at risk," she said, her voice trembling but true. That's when his tone changed. Darker, quieter. "You just made a career-ending mistake." Alyssa met his eyes. "If saving lives ends my career, I'll live with that." He leaned forward, whispering, "Then you better get used to being jobless." Hours later, she received an email. Emergency board review. Attendance required. When she arrived, the conference room was empty. Just Richard. He stood at the head of the table, arms crossed. "I told you to stop your crusade. But here you are. I thought this was a meeting," she said, clutching her folder. "Oh, it is," he said, stepping closer between the person who runs this hospital and the nurse who thinks she can ruin it. Her heart pounded. "You're intimidating the wrong person." He smiled coldly. "Am I?" The silence felt heavy, the kind that tightens your chest and makes time slow down. And then, from behind the door, a deep voice cut through the air like thunder. "Yeah, you are." Richard's head snapped around. Standing at the door was Captain Daniel Monroe. 6'3", square shoulders, Marine uniform pressed with perfection. Alyssa's eyes widened. She hadn't told him. "I was waiting in the lobby," Daniel said, stepping forward slowly. "Told the front desk I was here to pick up my wife." "Guess I picked the right time." Richard stiffened. "This is a private meeting." Daniel's jaw flexed, then closed the door. "Because I've got something to say too." He moved closer, stopping just inches from Richard. "You run a hospital. My wife saves lives in it. That means you're supposed to protect her, not destroy her." Richard swallowed hard, but Daniel didn't raise his voice. That made it worse. "There are two kinds of men," Daniel continued quietly. "The kind who build respect and the kind who steal it. You're the second one, and I've dealt with your kind before. Overseas, they talk loud, hide behind ranks, and crumble the second they're faced with someone who won't bow." The air felt electric, every word a hammer striking arrogance. Alyssa spoke, her voice trembling. "Daniel, stop. He's not worth it." Daniel looked at her, and for a moment the Marine vanished. Only her husband remained. He took her hand. "You've spent years fixing broken things, Alyssa. But some things aren't meant to be fixed." Then he turned back to Richard. "You tried to corner her, to scare her into silence. You thought she was alone. But she never was, because when you're married to a Marine, respect isn't a word. It's a line, and you just crossed it. Richard opened his mouth, but no words came. The power he built on fear cracked in front of everyone watching, nurses, administrators, even a board member who had stepped into the hallway. And then Daniel said the line that no one would forget. You can fire her. You can lie about her. But you'll never make her smaller than she is. And when the truth comes for you, and it will, I'll make sure it has her name on it. 2 weeks later, anonymous reports flooded the hospital board, all containing documents Alyssa had saved, detailing Richard's budget manipulations and forged compliance. Signatures down an investigation began quietly by the end of the month. Richard was escorted out of the building, not with cameras flashing, but with whispers following every step. The same nurses who once feared him now looked up as Alyssa walked by. They didn't need to say thank you. Their eyes said it for them. She'd faced a man who thought fear was stronger than truth. And won. That night, Alyssa came home to find Daniel cooking. Something he rarely did. The smell of garlic and rosemary filled the air. Asterisk, you didn't have to do that, she said softly. He smiled. You didn't have to stand up to him either. But you did, she laughed quietly. You always say Marines fight for their country. He nodded. Yeah, but the best fight I ever saw? You, standing in that office. You didn't shout. You didn't break. You just refused to bow. She looked down, tears finally falling. Not from pain this time, but relief. And Daniel whispered, the world calls men like him powerful. But the truth is, power doesn't scare people. Integrity does. Months later, the hospital announced a new initiative. For staff advocacy, the Monroe Standard named after Alyssa dotted protected nurses and staff who reported safety concerns from retaliation. She became the quiet hero of the hospital, not for fighting, but for standing. And every morning, when she tied her hair and slipped into her scrubs, she remembered that day, not as a moment of fear, but of freedom, because that's when she learned something every person should know. You don't need rank or wealth to be powerful, just the courage to do what's right when it's hardest. In the closing image, Alyssa walks through the hospital halls again, this time not in silence, but with quiet pride. A plaque hangs on the wall near the staff lounge. It reads, The Monroe Standard, for those who choose truth over fear. She touches the plaque gently and smiles, and as she steps into her next shift, she whispers to herself, you stood your ground. And that's all the power you'll ever need. Sometimes the world tries to break the ones who care the most, but strength isn't about who shouts the loudest. It's about who refuses to bow when silence is demanded. Alyssa's story isn't just about justice. It's about dignity, the kind that even power can't touch. If this story moved you, comment where you're watching from. And remember, the strongest people don't start fights. They finish them with truth.